thanks for tuning in today. It's great to have you here. I've just finished running a webinar for a client. I'm not going to give you all the details, but I will set up the scenario in terms of what we were talking about. I've worked with this client since COVID. Every couple of years, I jump in to just give them updates in terms of what's happening in the webinar world, because they run these webinars for people within our society that need critical support in the moment. And they've got a really tough challenge because the people that are dialing into their webinars, first of all, they can't see them. These people are anonymous. So they're hosting these webinars, but they can't see anyone. So it's basically, I guess, kind of like live streaming, but then you don't even know who is commenting. And you're delivering really important information and also wanting the people dialing in to feel hopeful, validated, maybe inspired that their tomorrow can be a better day. When I started working with this organization, it was early 2021. So a lot of the stuff that we did was really around technology and just getting the right camera, microphone, how to set up your lighting, where to look in terms of the camera. 2 years later, it was really around linking it back to purpose and how to build up engagement. And then this year, we really niched down on a topic, and I wanted to, I guess, explore more of that today. If you think the 2-hour workshop blueprint was a niche, well, this skill set is a niche, and that is the 4 different ways of responding. And in the context of, and this applies though to many different things, but in this situation, it was in the context of you're hosting a webinar, chat's coming through, what do you do with what you see? And I'm faced with this all the time, but I've never really thought about how I do it. So when I'm doing a live stream with Alan, we get comments. In the moment, I'm deciding whether to show that comment on the stream, respond to it, or just ignore it completely. And when I'm hosting masterclasses, webinars, it's the same thing too. And it really depends on how many people are in the room. I ran a session last month and there were 200 people on there, and I just could not respond to every question or chat that came through. Plus, within the time frame I had to run it, I couldn't really go off script. So that was a challenge. But for this, it's a really interesting question around what are your choices when it comes to responding? Because I guess there's probably like an infinite number of ways you can respond to something. There are so many contextual and environmental layers over the top of that. So in terms of how important is it to stick to the script, in terms of what you're delivering, time frames, is it going to take you in a direction, if you acknowledge it, that could go completely not where you want it to go? And you're making these split second decisions without even really, like, I would say even unconsciously, like I just literally do it in the moment. So when I hit pause and thought about what are the elements that go into making a decision on whether I'm facilitating something, I'm hosting a training session, and this could even apply to in person, someone brings up a question, I've got to decide, what do I do with that question? And so I've actually mapped out these 4 different archetypes in terms of how do you respond. And none of these archetypes are right or wrong. They're just different ways of handling something that comes through. So here I think are the 4 different options. So I've given them 4 different character roles. The first one I've called the fog. This is where you miss the moment, right? So it could be, again, on that live stream, hundreds of comments through. I don't get to see it all, so I miss the moment. Obviously, I'm continuing to do what I'm doing. I might advance to the next topic without acknowledging what has come through. So that's the fog. The next one is the Birdwatcher. That's a case of like, I might see the comment, but I'll let it go. Like I'll go, in Australia, we call it letting it go to the keeper. I'll just let it go through. And I could do this for a variety of reasons. One is maybe people will continue to mention the same thing, and so I don't need to continuously repeat it. Maybe it's because I don't want to go there, because either it could be too big, maybe it's completely off topic. So I might see it, but I don't really do anything with it. I also might acknowledge that in a way, like by saying thanks for all the comments coming through. I can see some powerful stuff in the chat, blah, 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 but that's probably the extent of it. Okay, I've seen it, it's there. But I don't really engage. The third character, or the third archetype, is the listener. So I will acknowledge it, but I won't fix it. And this is like a real type of like acknowledgement, maybe even a bit of validation. So I might say something like, hey, thanks for sharing that. It's a big feeling. I imagine others might be right there with you. When you are the listener and you're acknowledging something, there's 2 ways you acknowledge it. One is you respond with verbatim. So if someone says, I've had a really crappy day, you respond and say, oh, so-and-so is having a crappy day. Like, so you're actually using their words right back to them. Originally, I thought this was like a lazy option of just reading out the chat thing and just like reading it out verbatim. But there's actually a lot of power to it in terms of meeting people where they're at by using their exact words and mirroring what they say. They actually feel validated actually by hearing you speak or share and respond with their words. So there is a lot of power in responding with verbatim. The other thing you can do is paraphrase. And this can be dangerous sometimes. I like it because it's not like in every webinar, I'm going to just read verbatim every single chat thing, because that would be extremely boring. So you have to bring in some contrast and paraphrase from time to time. But you got to be aware maybe sometimes if you're not getting it right, because someone's version of a crappy day so for me, a crappy day would be like a 6 out of 10, because I have a very high standard on what my days should look like. Every day should be a 7 out of 10 plus. But other people, a crappy day might be 1 out of 10. It might be a different type of criteria. So for me to paraphrase and say, oh, you're not having a great day, it's kind of minimizing what they're going through, right? So you got to be careful with paraphrasing. And often when I do this with clients, when they're outlining maybe a challenge, I'll paraphrase it back to them, but also say, so what I'm hearing is this, is that correct? And that opens the door for them to say, yeah, that's right, or no, yeah, this is actually what I meant. So yeah, those are your choices when you are the listener. Then the final archetype I have here is the guide. And this is where you acknowledge it and you will go there. So you might say, again, a number of ways of doing that. You might respond and say, hey, let's stay in this for a couple of minutes and check in with ourselves around this comment, what's coming up for you about it. You might want to lead into maybe getting people to quietly reflect or turn to the person next to them, right? So you might actually go there and take one individual's response and actually, if you're feeling, and this is where you got to make a choice, like in the moment, kind of read the room, which is tough when you're on virtual, but do we go there? Or you might take that, share a story or anecdote, or you might take that question and go, this links into what we're exploring later on in the webinar, or it links back into what we just discussed. So you kind of take it, you riff on it. That's what the guide does. In terms of the different levels, like I said, neither is not right or wrong. It really is in the context of what you're doing. It starts from, so basically low engagement through to high engagement. Low engagement is the fog, moving up to the Birdwatcher. Then more engagement is the listener. Then even more engagement is the guide. So it also has a scale, that's the sliding scale on engagement, but also in terms of time. Obviously, it takes less time to be the fog because you've missed it, you're moving on. It takes more time to be the listener and the guide. And when we are working in the constraints of hosting sessions that finish, meetings that finish at certain times, we've got to be very precise with when do we take it, when do we run, when do we acknowledge it and say, look, let's explore this afterwards. You've got to make a call out on that as well. So I know that a lot of us, we seem to just do it, we just acknowledge and move on or respond or miss things. Maybe there's some books or resources about this where people actually give you the options of what you can do next. So I found this really useful, like creating this model for my client and then talking it through and getting their thoughts as well. Let me know your thoughts and I'll speak to you tomorrow.